if we look at the world and we watch the systems that are at work, we realize that the Earth is in decline in so many ways, and that we are now the dominant species. So what is our design? What is our plan? If we say, oh, the world's going to hell and it's not our plan, well, then it's our de facto plan because we don't appear to have another one. And so who's got the plan? Let's get going. Now, I come from design, so I can't help it. And people say that pessimists think the glass is half empty and optimists think it's half full. I think the glass is always full of water and air. Also, don't think it's big enough. And I think the water should be clean, and I think the air should too. So instead of shrinking from our responsibilities, what if we rise to our occasions? And that's what I would talk about. And if we come away from this talk with one thing, being less bad is really a good idea, but it's insufficient to the task at hand. It might get us halfway to the destructive pace, but if we increase our consumption, if we have growth, it's not sufficient. We do it, and we do it joyfully, but we can add to it some exciting things. So I've entitled my talk, Beyond Sustainability, From Limits to Growth. And for those of us in the sustainability movement, you'll probably notice two funny things here. One is I'm using the word sustainability, which I sometimes don't do. And the reason I often don't use sustainable is because I asked you what's your relationship to your spouse, and you said sustainable. I'd say, I'm sorry. That really sounds boring. So let's get past that. So that's why I said beyond sustainability. And then Limits to Growth is a very important document published by the Club of Rome in 1972 out of MIT. And Limits to Growth was a bellwether that got a lot of attention, and it was about how our growth is limited because you cannot, as Kenneth Boulding pointed out, have exponential growth in demand with declining resources. It just doesn't work. If we look at it, we can go back in history and start to think about how we see the world. And so I want to start with then, and then we'll look at now, and then we're going to go to next, where we'll spend most of our time. But if we go back to then, this is the 12th century. This is Hildegard von Bingen, a poet and doctor. And look at her poetry. Glance at the sun, see the moon and the stars. Gaze at the beauty of Earth's greenings. Now think. Now think. She went on to say, God gave us these things to delight in, and then she said, they are here at our disposal. They are here for our use, for without them we cannot survive. Disposal, use, survive. I think we should focus today on that delight part, okay? And talk about how we can celebrate that and actually be part of nature and enhance it rather than destroy it. So Limits to Growth used an interesting metaphor on this idea of exponential growth. They used the lily pond and said if you have a lily pond and lilies doubling every year, then pretty soon, you watch the lily pads come in and you still think you have a lily pond. And it's really interesting because at a certain point, like there where you're at 16th and all of a sudden you're a quarter, you still think you have a lily pond. And then the penultimate day, and then there it is. So all of a sudden, boom. See? So is that our plan? Now, if we go to the Rio Earth Summit, 1992, what came out? Eco-efficiency, a very important idea. But the statements of the Business Council for Sustainable Development became the World Business Council. Really important. It said we can reduce our impact. Reduce our impact as if we're supposed to be having what kind of impact? Is it positive, negative? If we're going to reduce it, because why? Because it's not good. And it said we can reduce pollution and waste, and we can make money doing it, and that's marvelously true. And businesses can do this, and it's been shown it's incredibly economic. But one has to ask the question, if you reduce the use of energy and water and save $100 million in a year and call it your eco program, one would have to ask, what were your managers doing throwing away $1 million worth of water and energy last year? What does that have to do with the environment? You just stopped releasing so much problem into the world. You haven't done anything for the environment. You've just done less against it. And so really that was a management problem. People were throwing away money last year. What does that have to do with the environment? That's an economic question. And so at the Earth Summit, we also see with the Brundtland Commission and so on, we start to see the idea of economy, equity, and ecology all becoming considerations. And today I want everybody to focus on what it means to be 100% fabulous, which is right there. which means you're 100% fair, you're 100% in support of natural laws, and you're 100% in your economic sphere. And for those people who are in economics, that one is really important. The economy corner of the economy corner, that's make profit. If you don't, you don't exist. So fair enough, do it. But all of these are important. This is 100% respect and dignity. This is follow the laws of nature. My training as an architect, I have to follow the law of gravity. It is not just a good idea in my business, it's the law. So what other laws are there that we might have to follow here? So where are we now on this? Well, eco-efficiency, and we see still today, if you look at corporate social responsibility reporting, you see everybody recording how we're trying to be less bad. Now this is 16% image of that circle, and the former USSR was declared 16% uninhabitable in 1992 by their scientific community. This is quite astonishing. 16% of the former USSR declared uninhabitable. They called it ecocide. That's, and for those of you from the United States, this would be equivalent of having to put a fence around Texas. Okay? So this is not a small thing. These issues really do matter, and they've become obviously fundamental. So, but the notion about being less bad, we chart it like this, and we publish this as our benefit to the world. We're going to be less bad. We're going to reduce our carbon by 20% in 10 years, and our goal is 0. Our goal is 0. Really? Our goal is 0? You know, that's like going home and tell your kids, it's better if you're not here. Going only to 0, if that's all you're going to say, is what you're not, well, it'd be like hopping in a taxi and saying, quick, I'm not going to the airport. Is that really where we're going? And if this is our direction, if I found myself in a car going 100 miles an hour towards Paris when I leave Zurich and I'm supposed to be coming to Davos and I slow down to 20, does it help me? I'm still going the wrong direction. It only helps me if I use it to turn around. And so today, we're going to talk about turning around. Peter Drucker in 1984 pointed out it's a manager's job to be efficient and do something the right way, but it's the executive's job to be effective and do the right thing. Because the managers, what if they're using Six Sigma perfection to do the wrong thing? Oh, now they're perfectly wrong. If you do the wrong thing perfectly, you're perfectly wrong. What is the right thing to do in business? If you're making the wrong product and the market doesn't want it, wrong product. If you're making things that are toxifying the atmosphere, oops. As designers today, is that your intention? I want you all to put on design minds and change the way we see. So really, what is our intention? And then and we want to talk about growth, because Francis Crick said in order to be alive, you have to have 3 conditions. You have to have growth. If you're not growing, you're dying. And that in order to grow, you have to have income. And the only form of income on the planet is basically renewable energy. That's the only growth on the planet. It's the only income we have. It's not raining phosphate, in case anybody noticed. Right? We have a little cosmic dust and occasional meteorite. The third, though, he said you have to have an open metabolism of chemicals operating for the benefit of the organisms in their reproduction. An open metabolism of chemicals. So how exciting is this? So by design, we can choose. Do we want that or this? Or do we just want a little less of this? Okay. So what are we measuring? What are we designing? What are we intending? And we can have some fun with this. So we're going to take the stuff we don't want and realize getting rid of it is a great idea, but let's put it where it is, below the line, and say, let's get rid of it. Good. Now going to 0. Absolutely. 0 accidents, of course. 0 toxic materials. 0 carbon in the atmosphere, etc. And then let's add to that the things we do want and start to measure them and indicate our intentionality, see? And so there is our goal, up there, not here. Nothing is not one of those goals that gets you out of it. Yeah? $9 billion was spent on sustainability consulting last year, $9 billion, and we looked into it. And you know what it was spent on? Scorekeeping. This would be like going to a football match, and you go there to watch the scorekeepers. So, working with Cradle, where I come from, what we look at is materials are all nutrients, so we don't make waste. Why would we do it? Nature doesn't do it. We want materials reutilized with new business models, leasing concepts, design for disassembly and reuse. We want clean energy, clean water, and social fairness. As we look at the history of the world, we see this biological metabolism Crick described, and now we see one that is a technological metabolism that is humans making stuff. And just remember, you need to be intensely humble on this one, because as a designer, may I remark that it took us 5,000 years to put wheels on our luggage. We are not that smart. Okay? So humility matters. But we can design things that go back in cycles. So what you want to watch is television not own 4,000 chemicals. See? So these things are fun. So biological nutrients are textiles, things that get your body, things that can get in water. Technical nutrients, polymers, metals, and so on. And so we design for that and for disassembly and continuous reuse. There are people who have done this. It's quite exciting. And whereas we used to make waste, we have textile factories in the world now where they used to have trimmings that were declared as hazardous material. They're now mulch for the local garden club because they changed their chemistries. And so now waste equals food. It's very positive. It was 20% cheaper to make and is the fabric of choice in the airlines. It's so safe you can eat it. So if anybody finds themselves on Airbus at 40,000 feet with an extreme fiber deficiency, you can safely eat your chair. All right? So we also see technical nutrients where things we used to make waste. And again, we see things that are coming back in cycles. And carpets that can be taken apart and put back together. We're storing our raw materials on the customer's floors. We're in relationship with them. These materials are assets for all generations. Safe, healthy. I'd say they're future awesome or something like that. Okay. So what Cradle to Cradle can do is that this kind of thinking can work at all scales, and we now put it in the public domain. Cradle to Cradle has been given to the public in a public institution with all our databases and is now operated as an independent third-party peer-reviewed standard. We're very excited about that. It's available everywhere. So we have products of all kinds that are biological, nutrients, technical. This is aluminum. Do you know that aluminum or aluminium, 75% of the aluminium ever used by humans since 1850 is still in circulation? Isn't that amazing? Technical nutrition. This is Nike's European headquarters, 1994, the first building to not have PVC. 1994. It was 20 years ago. You still can't find buildings like this. Just do it, I think, was the concept that made it happen. And then here is YouTube's headquarters, an undulating meadow of ancient grasses. Ford's River Rouge, the world's largest green roof at the time, saved them $35 million in capex, which is equivalent of getting an order for $900 million worth of cars. Okay, there are lots of reasons to do this. It's a good business reason. New research center in Los Angeles studying the effects on the oceans of carbon. A building that restores butterflies in Barcelona. NASA's new space station on Earth, which makes 120% of the energy it needs from renewables, purifies its own water, and was built for a normal federal budget ahead of schedule. India, look at this. This is a motorcycle factory that makes electricity from gas and eventually biogas. Makes electricity, heating, cooling, makes water out of the air, 6 million gallons a year, produces oxygen inside the building to keep us from having to change all the air all the time because we're giving oxygen from plants for the workers. That is going to save so much money, it's probably going to pay for the whole system in 4 months. They're making jobs because they're putting greenhouses on the roof, so we have hundreds working in the building, and now we have hundreds working on top growing food for the families. I'd say that one's pretty fabulous. We see another one here in the Netherlands, same kind of thing, where all of a sudden projects that are going to make more energy, they need to operate, purify their own material, and grow food. Now, I'm here from Stanford University, where I also teach. I live in Virginia, University of Virginia. But look at this plan that was developed by the engineers, at Stanford. They've actually mapped the whole world and how much wind, solar, wave, of how to get it done. So we pretty much realize we can technically do what we need to do. And the question is, do we have political and economic will? And these things are coming because the costs of various renewables and so on are coming down, as everyone sees, at a very dramatic rate, and we can anticipate it. So essentially, I'll close with this. I'd like to talk about the nature of business itself. And I remember I lived in a house designed by Thomas Jefferson, so I could get people to come for dinner. And I had the head of Morgan Stanley come to my house, and I said, we're designers here. What do you know about things being on Wall Street that we don't know? And he said, I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, what's the secret of Wall Street? He said, it's easy. It's the creation of the perception of scarcity where none exists. Wow. And this notion that we have this world of scarcity, of limits, when we actually have the amount of creativity that's in this room. We have all these materials we can use and use and use and use forever. We have all this energy coming free from when I did the space station for NASA. I looked at the team and I said, who did the photovoltaic? And I go, so this is a nuclear-powered thing, and the reactor is 93 million miles away, a safe distance, it's 8 minutes, and it's wireless, and it's free? Uh-huh. Oh, okay. Let's go there. So, the question we've asked is, how much can we get for how little we give? We even see this in philanthropy. How much can we get for how little we give? I think it's time to reverse that. And we can ask the question of abundance and sharing and creativity. And that question is, how much can we give for all that we get? It's a question of generosity, not meanness. It's a question of abundance, not limits. It's a question of bravery, not fear. So, what if we move from this just thinking about the limits to thinking about growth? And business's job is to think about growth, because growth is life. Life is growth.